Hi friends! Welcome to today's video where we are going to be building this spooky pumpkin patch. It's perfect for the Forgotten Lands as I'm kind of decorating that area right now for the Halloween season. Let's jump into the video. To start, I want to say sorry about my voice. I did karaoke and it's gone, but we're going to start this pumpkin patch build right here. What you need to start by doing is really dig up like a square, a big square of holes so that you can plant your pumpkins. It really doesn't matter what size you do. I started off building something that looks similar to a rectangle, and then I ended up shortening it up a little bit later. So again, it doesn't really matter how many holes you choose to dig, but this is what I left off with. I think it's like 12 by 13 or 13 by 12, something like that. Again, it doesn't matter. You just want that centerpiece of the well or whatever you choose to put in the middle to fit evenly, you know, front back into evenly in the middle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Next thing you want to do is go and plant all of your pumpkins and then water all your pumpkins. And then once you have that done, you are ready to actually start decorating. Okay, so that was the nitty-gritty of the work. I will put in the description box the exact measurements I used to get this square if you want to follow this, you know, to the T. All right, so the next thing you want to do is decide where you want to put Goofy's stall. I decided to put mine off to the left-hand side because, as you guys know, I like my builds to be functional, so it gives me a reason to kind of like walk through them or do things around the builds. So I put Goofy's stall off to the side because I'll go there to buy my pumpkins, and it's right around a pumpkin patch, which I think is perfect and really cute. You can also harvest these pumpkins and sell them, so it doubles as, you know, a money maker. So either way, it works out pretty perfect. One thing that's different from this build compared to the spooky graveyard build that I did is that I wanted this to be a little bit more lively since we would have pumpkins planted here. I thought adding some colorful bushes and adding a little bit more color into this build would actually work better versus the graveyard being like super dead and, you know, overgrown and dingy. So this one has a little bit more life, but I did incorporate some more of those like dead trees, dead bushes, and things like that. It took me a minute to kind of figure out where I wanted to put the bushes and how I wanted to work in the lights. But overall, I think it turned out really, really well. You'll see later in the video that I actually did decide to use the that iron fencing. I can't remember the name for some reason right now, but the same iron fencing that I've been using, I continued on. I just think that if you choose one fence to use in the build, it might look cohesive to continue using that. So I'm going to go with that and see how I like it. I also started playing around with the stone rug. I was really hoping that I could get it to fit perfectly in the middle, but it didn't work out for me, so I kind of scratched that idea. If you do want to use the stone rug, you might have to choose a different fountain too, because I don't know that a lot of the items can be placed on top of the rock rug, so just keep that in mind. But if you do, maybe put down your rock rugs in a square first and then build your pumpkin patch around it. That could be a good solution if you do want that to be like in the middle of your build. I think that would actually look really good too, now that I think about it. I played around with different benches and stuff too, but I landed on the wooden one, and yeah, I'll just let you guys continue to watch because the rest of this is just kind of how everything started to come together after I built for a little while. I think now would be the perfect time for us to jump right into some spooky stories. As you guys know, I wanted these to be a little bit more fun, where I don't spend the entire time just talking about the build or making up something to talk about. I think it would be fun just because it's the Halloween season to share spooky stories. So let's get into the first one. Okay, so as I referenced in the last video, I was using a site called Ranker where they had some really cool spooky stories. So the first story is going to be from Ranker. I will link it in the description box below if you guys want to look at more of these stories. But this one is by a Redditor named Nick Boddick, and the story title is They Dug Up Empty Caskets. And let's go ahead and start. The city wanted to develop on my family's cemetery, and my family agreed to sell them the land that we had if the city would also pay for a portion of the land next to it, on which my family would continue the business. When that happened, my family had to inform all the other families with buried loved ones that the remains of their dearly departed were going to be moved into new plots. Work began on that, and the bulldozers and other large shoveling equipment wasn't yet so common. It had to be done by hand. The ground was dug up, the caskets were retrieved and moved along with their headstones down to the new, freshly dug plots. Back then, caskets were generally made of wood with a decorative cloth laid over it. These wooden caskets, more often than not, weighed roughly equal to or less than the body they contained. The weight of the body inside was discernible from the casket itself. Well, when they got to the final northernmost third of the land that the city had bought, the caskets became lighter. The sounds of the corpse within, sliding slightly, a jerky step making a limb fall to one side, hitting inside the box, etc., began to become fewer and farther between. Eventually, the last 20 or so caskets, they felt like there was nothing inside at all. With the permission of the families, the cemetery employees opened these caskets they thought were empty and found just that to be the case. The insides of the caskets were bare and looked as if nothing had ever been inside them. Now, how does that happen? Somebody explain that to me. How does that happen? What? The way I would have just put the casket down and walked off. This actually would have been a really good story for the graveyard build, but I guess it works here too. So that's, I can't imagine. Where did they go? Where did they go, friends? Okay. Anyways, let's get into the second story. Okay. This one I found is so weird and creepy and interesting, but it's titled Yellow Ribbon. It's from a site called AmericanFolklore.net, and it's retold by S.E. Schoolosser, I think is how it's pronounced. Anyways, let's start the story. Jane wore a yellow ribbon around her neck every day, and I mean every day, rain or shine, whether it matched her outfit or not. It annoyed her best friend Johnny after a while. He was her next door neighbor and had known Jane since she was 3. When he was young, he had barely noticed the yellow ribbon, but now that they were in high school together, it bothered him. "Why do you wear that yellow ribbon around your neck, Jane?" he asked her every day, but she wouldn't tell him. Still, in spite of this aggravation, Johnny thought she was cute. He asked her to the soda shop for an ice cream sundae, then he asked her to watch him play in the football game. Then he started seeing her home, and come the spring, he asked her to the dance. Jane always said yes when he asked her out, and she always wore a yellow dress to match the ribbon around her neck. It finally occurred to Johnny that he and Jane were basically going steady, and he still didn't know why she wore the yellow ribbon around her neck. So he asked her about it yet again. And yet again, she did not tell him. "Maybe someday I'll tell you about it," she replied. Someday. That answer annoyed Johnny, but he shrugged it off because Jane was so cute and fun to be with. Well, time flew past, as it has a habit of doing, and one day Johnny proposed to Jane and was accepted. They planned a big wedding, and Jane hinted that she might tell him about the yellow ribbon around her neck on their wedding day. But somehow, with all of the preparations and his beautiful bride, the lovely reception, Johnny just never got around to asking Jane about it. And when he did remember, she got a bit teary-eyed and said, "We're so happy together. What difference does it make?" And Johnny decided she was right. Johnny and Jane raised a family of 4 with the usual ups and downs, laughter and tears. With their golden anniversary rolled around, Johnny asked once again about the yellow ribbon around her neck. It was the first time that he brought it up since weeks after their wedding. Whenever their children asked about it, he'd always hush them, and somehow none of the kids had dared ask their mother. Jane gave Johnny a sad look and said, "Johnny, you've waited this long. You can wait a while longer." And Johnny agreed. It was not until Jane was on her deathbed a year later that Johnny, seeing his last chance slip away, asked Jane one final time about the yellow ribbon she wore around her neck. She shook her head a bit at his persistence and then said, with a sad smile, "Okay, Johnny, you can go ahead and untie it." With shaking hands, Johnny fumbled for the knot and untied the yellow ribbon around his wife's neck, and Jane's head fell off. I don't mean to laugh, but that is literally so insane to me. Well, kind of smart. That's all I can say. She had Johnny wait until her last days to untie the ribbon. She should have just took that one to her deathbed. That should Johnny should never have to have experienced that. But yeah, that's kind of creepy, right? Could you imagine? That's definitely something out of Little Nightmares, okay? I hope you guys enjoyed both those stories, and hopefully they weren't too spooky, but those are definitely creepy on the creepy meter, okay? So we're nearing the end of the speed build part, and I am going to show you guys how this looks exactly like in your valley with some cinematic little scenes. So I hope you enjoy that. If you enjoyed the video, give the video a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Comment below and tell me which one of these stories was your favorite, or what kind of build you're doing in the Forgotten Lands right now, or in your valley in general. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and let's jump in and see exactly how this is going to look in your valley.